Since the removal of the Tribunal system in 2014, Riot Games' ability to punish players for intentionally feeding, soft inting, and going AFK has progressively diminished over time. More and more players in the League of Legends community are experiencing teammates that are willing to give up, troll, and ruin the experiences for everyone else, with little to no punishment. We see this in our own games at home, as well as on streams with popular players. With the lack of punishment being noticed, the amount of people who troll, AFK, and int continues to plague the League of Legends community. And when we turn to Riot for help, they do not seem to have a solution. I believe Riot needs to start taking these issues seriously, and the best way to solve these problems is to bring back the Tribunal system. For those who don't know what the Tribunal system was, it was a community-based punishment system where willing participants would log into the Tribunal and would be assigned a case. After reviewing the case, the participants would decide whether to pardon or to punish the summoner in question. Summoners that voted on cases in the Tribunal developed a justice rating, which was calculated using their score and their right/wrong judging percentage. A summoner's score was increased when their vote agrees with the majority verdict. This could all be viewed in the justice review, which also showed a summoner's total number of cases reviewed, cases correctly judged, longest correct judgment streak, and justice rating. This created an incentive to those who decided to help with the Tribunal and gave them the motivation to actually review the cases diligently and reach a logical and reasonable conclusion. However, the system in its entirety was removed from League of Legends in early 2014, which means that all reports and punishments are now dealt with by Riot Games alone. Now that I have explained to you what the former Tribunal system was, we can talk about the problems that it used to solve. While most of my evidence is anecdotal, recently there has been a rise in the amount of games where streamers such as I Will Dominate, TF Blade, and others get inted. As streamers are the primary method of recording games and showing upcoming trends in a game, I believe their own experience can be used as a viable example. Those who have played League of Legends or have at least followed the game over the last few years can tell that the amount of players who behave in a manner that many would consider bannable has increased over time. Just a year ago, Riot answered the question, "Will the Tribunal return?" A direct quote regarding the issues with feeding and trolling from Riot themselves goes as follows. "There's a couple things the Tribunal brought that we know we haven't tackled in a big way, like more focus on trolling and intentional feeding detection." Here, Riot is admitting to us that since the removal of the Tribunal system, they have not effectively been able to deal with trolls and intentional feeders the way that they used to be able to. This can be backed up by the countless reports and outcries from the community who have all experienced trolls and feeders daily. Don't forget that this post about the Tribunal was made a year ago, and since then, there has been zero discussion on the topic from Riot's end. We all have our own stories and anecdotes to share on this issue, but I think that the admission from Riot Games themselves is enough to support our claims that negligent behavior is not punished as it should be. Now, I would like to bring your attention to the issues of AFKers. AFK players is something that was actually never dealt with by the Tribunal and was solely dealt with through the Lever Buster system. In the infancy of the game, this was a fine system, as most people who wanted to leave the game would just disconnect or would stand still and eventually get kicked out by the Lever Buster system, leading to a ban. However, as time went on, players began to find ways around Lever Buster detection by running around in the fountain or mindlessly moving around the map pretending to play. These are forms of going AFK that Lever Buster is incapable of detecting. However, this has been a problem since well before the Tribunal was ever removed. So why hasn't Riot been able to find a solution to punishing AFK players? Here are what I believe to be the main issues Riot has been struggling with in order to correctly punish AFKers. For the first problem, it's too difficult for Riot to determine whether it was an actual disconnect or a rage quit, which creates a noticeable gray area. Next, the amount of reports for AFKing needed before a player is banned is uncertain. Third, unlike being toxic in chat, there is no light punishment for going AFK, like the chat restriction. So Riot opts out of punishing people as often for going AFK because the punishment will always be more severe. And finally, they are more focused on punishing harsh language than people who make more of a negative impact on others through trolling or going AFK. This is a sad reality of the punishment system because not only does Riot have to figure out how to punish people who troll and intentionally feed, They also have to implement a superior method to detecting AFK players who have learned to bypass the lever buster system. The most frustrating part of all of this is that Riot Games puts far more effort into banning players who use harsh language than any of the other issues. Before I get into it, I know detecting harsh language requires way less effort and is far easier to punish than anything else. However, the player themselves has a built-in mechanism for dealing with those who are toxic, and that is the mute button. We are able to control what we read and see from our teammates, and don't really need Riot's help avoiding toxic messages. But on the issues of trolls and AFKs, there is nothing we can do but hope that Riot Games will punish these players. Ironically, the one thing that we need the least amount of help with, Riot is the most efficient at punishing. Punishing harsh language is the easiest to punish, therefore it takes the majority of Riot's attention. But what about everything else? To those watching this video, it should be painfully obvious that Riot is simply just overwhelmed and out of their element when it comes to the punishment system. Lever buster is easily bypassed, trolls and intentional feeders are hard to detect, and they simply just don't have the manpower to deal with these massive issues that are plaguing the game. The more and more players get away with bad behavior, the more likely they are to repeat that behavior. If you just follow that train of thought, you can see why over the last 5 years, the punishment system has slowly and surely gotten worse. Less players are afraid of getting punished, so more of them act out, and this builds up over time. It has been a year since the last time Riot has mentioned the report system, and since then, the game has only gotten worse, and the players are left more and more in the dark. To be entirely honest, I don't blame Riot for the most part. There are thousands of reports a day, and it is extremely difficult to pinpoint exactly which ones are worthy of attention. However, where I do blame Riot is the fact that they understand this, yet still insist on doing it alone. The reasons that Riot gave for the Tribunal never coming back is that it was slow and inefficient, as well as being wildly inaccurate. On the slow and inefficient point, I can understand where they are coming from, but if you prevent thousands of additional people from helping you sort through reports, how is the new system going to be faster and more efficient? I would rather work through and build up on a slow and inefficient system than our current system that seems to not give out any punishment at all. On the issue of the Tribunal decisions being wildly inaccurate, I'm going to call bullshit, because it's not like Riot's employees magically have better judgment than those who participate in the Tribunal, especially when you consider that some Riot employees think it's morally acceptable to sexually harass their coworkers. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that there is never going to be a perfect punishment system. However, it is clear from the last 5 years worth of evidence that Riot cannot do this alone, and we need to see Riot taking steps to actually improve upon the system that they currently have. But in the spirit of improvement, here's some suggestions I can make on how to improve the formal Tribunal system in case Riot ever decides to bring it back. First, have an appeal system to the Tribunal where those who were punished can get their punishment reviewed by someone else if they think there was a potential mistake. Next, since not all reports are the same, limit the amount of issues that the Tribunal would deal with. Issues such as intentional feeding, AFKs, and trolling reports would go to this potential Tribunal system. Third, leave the toxic behavior reports to Riot in the current system, as they have done a decent job of dealing with harsh language and toxicity in general. Finally, remove the in-game incentives that were given to Tribunal participants, and instead make their justice rank viewable on their profile. This way, it shows the integrity of the player, as well as gets rid of the potential abuse of the system. These are just a few ideas I have for improving the Tribunal if Riot ever decides to bring it back. But a single video from a relatively unknown voice in the League of Legends community isn't going to change anything. It is going to take all of us as a community to rise up and demand that Riot take action against these issues that have plagued the game for so long. Whether or not it is with the Tribunal, we need to demand that Riot Games fixes their punishment system. Sharing this video and leaving a like on it will go a long way to getting this issue out there. If you have any suggestions on how Riot can fix the Tribunal system, be sure to leave a comment down below. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, you've been electrified. Hold on.
Gimme.